Well, at this rate, I think you might need a law degree in order to follow the Cleveland Browns. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. So I'll get straight into it. The Cleveland Browns have signed wide receiver Isaiah Bond. It was announced yesterday that, of course, Quinshon Judkins will not face any charges from his incident. It was also then announced a couple of hours later that Isaiah Bond, wide receiver out of Texas, formerly of Alabama, who went undrafted this year, probably mainly because of those accusations. He also has had his charges dropped, will not face criminal charges. And in about 15 minutes later, I think right on cue and probably as expected, the Cleveland Browns signed him. He announced the signing himself, posting to Twitter. It's not actually been confirmed by the Browns yet, so I might have to do a retractment video on this if they just come out and actually go, nope, we've not signed him. But at this point, I think that would be quite shocking considering everything that's kind of led up to this, and him obviously posting that announcement himself. I'm going to make this one quick because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a criminal defense attorney, I'm not a prosecutor. It's not my place to talk about someone's criminal case. It's not my place to talk about charges, because if I tried to sit here and talk about this stuff to you guys, I would be doing a disservice, because I would probably be providing inaccurate information. It's not something that I have any kind of knowledge about. As I said, I've never done law at any level, not even not even GCSE, not even primary school. GCSE is secondary school for any Americans watching, by the way. This is something that I have nothing, no knowledge on. So I'm not even gonna pretend like I do and try and comment on this stuff. From a moral compass kind of standpoint, where do I stand with my personal feelings? Of course, it is disappointing that the Cleveland Browns continue to sign players with questionable backgrounds. But at the end of the day, that is the NFL. And if you want to follow a team that doesn't sign players with questionable backgrounds, you're going to have to find a different sport, unfortunately. This is the NFL. I've said it 1,000 times. Never look to the NFL for morality. You will be disappointed. It's, teams care about whether a player can play and whether they can contribute for their team. They don't really care about their character. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is in most sports. Again, I'm not here to comment about anything to do with his charges. I'm not here to assert innocence. I'm not here to assert guilt. That's not what I do. I talk about the Cleveland Browns on YouTube. Isaiah Bond has signed for the Cleveland Browns. So, I wanted to just talk about it in the context that I can. On the field, this is a player that I had as a potential second round pick. I think the consensus was, day 2, second, third round pick, top 100 player. Some people were higher on him than others. Some people had this guy as a potential first rounder. Some people, last year when he transferred to Texas, I think a lot of people thought that, he had the potential, he had the talent to go have a really good year at Texas and be a first round pick and be one of the better wide receivers in this draft. That, of course, didn't happen. Slightly disappointing for him at Texas. Wasn't able to crack 1,000 yards. But, this is a guy that you're betting more on the potential and you're betting more on the tools than you are production. Less than 1,500 total receiving yards in 3 years at college, less than 10 touchdowns, less than 100 receptions. So there's not, a bulk load of production there for Isaiah Bond. But this is a guy that has tools at the wide receiver position that, of course, are, intriguing for NFL teams. This is a very, very fast player. This is not someone that is just fast in a straight line. This is a truly explosive athlete, shall we say. He only ran I say only, he ran a 4.39 at the combine, which was actually disappointing because I think a lot of people expected him to run a lot faster. We of course don't know any, factors that maybe led to him running a slower time. We don't know. But, this is a guy who is very fast. It shows up in the testing and it shows up on film. He is very, very fast. He is explosive. He's not the biggest receiver. He's got a fairly slight frame at 5'11" and I think around 185 pounds. But not a tweener by any means. And someone that can be used as that kind of over-the-top receiver. This isn't a guy that's going to feast in the middle. This is a true deep threat / gadget type player, in my opinion. Someone that you can hand the ball to on end arounds, someone that you can throw the ball to on screens, and then also someone that obviously you can use to take the defense over the top. They've brought him in. Take that as you want. I completely understand if you completely disagree with this. It's not my place to tell you otherwise. You do you. I'm never ever going to tell anyone how to be a fan. But as I said, just talking from a strictly on the field perspective, bringing anyone into that wide receiver room that the Browns have currently is a good thing, because that wide receiver room is probably one of the worst rooms on the team. It's definitely, it's top heavy. Don't get me wrong. Jerry Jeudy's one of the better players on this team, but other than that, when you go down the depth, there's not that much there. Tillman and Thrash hopefully can step up and have good years. Deontay Johnson, there is the potential for him to have a slight rebound year. So it's not that it's terrible, but you would of course like to see more. And adding Isaiah Bond to that, I think, adds what the Browns have obviously been looking for in that room, which is speed. Judy's great, Tillman, Thrash, Johnson, all of these guys, but none of them are true over the top, genuine game-breaking speed type of guys. And that's something that I think the Browns and a lot of probably NFL teams before the accusations and before the charges felt like Isaiah Bond could bring to the NFL. I expect him to make the 53. I don't think this is a signing that is like, oh, well, let's see how he gets on and, these, last couple of weeks of training camp and so on, and maybe stash him on the practice squad or something. They've signed him now this late into the offseason, this late into training camp. Partly, yes, obviously, because now they've got an answer on the criminal case, but because they expect him to be on the 53. You don't bring someone in at this point to not be on the 53. So that, of course, takes away another spot for one of these kind of, camp favourite guys, shall we say, like a Luke Florera. But, I do think that it does improve this Browns wide receiver room from a strictly on the field perspective. And to just finish it off, as I said, I don't want to go into the accusations, though. I don't want to go into the criminal stuff and all of that. But I do think that, of course they brought it upon themselves by doing it. But once the Browns brought in Deshaun Watson, once they gave him $230 million, once they, of course, traded 3 first-round picks for him, at that point they basically gave away any benefit of the doubt. And even though they do things that every other NFL team does, they're going to just get a worse rep for it because of that Deshaun Watson signing, and of course, some of the other signings you can say before and after then as well. Whether your personal opinion on this is up to you, and no one is going to tell you otherwise. But just to be consistent, because I'm not, as someone that tries to be as consistent as I can, and some people might say that, oh, I'm carrying water for this regime. I carry water for no one but myself. I just try and be consistent in my takes, and as someone that watches the entire NFL, not just the Cleveland Browns, I do think it's unfair to constantly just go, oh, well, every time the Cleveland Browns do something, they're the worst team ever. They're a terribly run organization. But then when any other team does it, oh, that's fine. I see people, Browns fans, constantly praising the Steelers, constantly praising the Ravens for their culture and all of this stuff. The Ravens fucking drafted Mike Green this year. They've made plenty of signings and brought many of guys in that have similar character flaws, shall we say, that Mike Green has. This is the NFL. This happens in every single NFL team. Is it disappointing? Yes. But you can't use it as something to just, as always, pile on the Browns. You might disagree with that. If you do, let me know. You might think that I'm just playing defense for this regime. If you do, let me know. But as I've said, I carry water for no one but myself. Every time they've given me a reason to, I will criticise this regime. Yes, I can criticise them from a personal perspective on some of these signings that they've made, but I can't do it from just strictly talking from an NFL perspective, because we have to treat the Cleveland Browns differently than every other NFL team because they're the Cleveland Browns. I think that's unfair to do. But I don't want to go into a tangent on this stuff. As I said, I'm not here to talk about any of that. Just wanted to talk about it from an on-the-field perspective. This is a bonus to the Browns wide receiver room. There's not really any other way you can say that when you're talking strictly on the field. Yes, you can talk about maybe off the field and is this good for culture and all of that stuff, whatever, that's a different argument. But strictly talking on the field, bringing Isaiah Bond into this wide receiver room makes the room better. And we'll see, of course, how they plan to handle him going forward. But again, didn't want to make this a long one. Didn't want to talk for more than I had to about this, because it's not really something that I'm that comfortable, shall we say, talking about. Because as I said, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a law degree. I don't have a criminal defense degree. This is not something for me to be talking about. But I talked about the Browns on YouTube, so I wanted to talk about this signing. But that would do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, then please do me a favour. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if that means I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy, because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have an amazing weekend, but most importantly, go Browns.